They proposed building another power station because we were kind of captive to Empire, and it was about twice what it ended up being that we could produce it ourselves for. Kraft was being built in the 50s, St. John's, Lily Tulip, so they were starting to build a lot of industry around here, and I don't think Main Street was able to keep up with it, so they were just looking for another way for us to have our own power. I don't know why there were so many people that were against it, but there were a few. But there were 3 votes. First 2 votes failed. First vote was only like 145 vote difference. Second time was 6,000 or 7,000 votes difference. And then the third time it was overwhelming. It could have been that Main Street was unreliable. It could have been that it was too expensive to get it from Empire. But I think people wanted to be independent. We've been independent for a long time now, and I think it's helped us.
When the James River Power Station was established in 1957, it to me was the first major step taken by the city and the utility following the purchase of the old Springfield Gas and Electric Company back in 1945, creating what we now know as city utilities. All of this was so vital to the growth of the community. At the time, we as a city of Springfield were competing with Joplin for preeminence in southwest Missouri. What City Utilities has done was a major part of starting to separate Springfield from the rest of southwest Missouri. The James River Power Station was a major part of that.
I remember coming down to the lake when I was a kid, and actually we took a tour inside when I was probably 10, 11 years old. And I remember walking around on the turbine floor and through the control room, and the guys that worked here at the time explaining things to us, of course, that I didn't understand. And I just was amazed because it was super clean and things were just humming along, and I thought, man, this would be an awesome place to work. And it turned out I got to work here.
The James River Power Station has been a landmark in this city since 1957. I remember as a Cub Scout in 1959 or 1960 going out there with our Cub Scout pack, going through it and being so awed about what was going on.
By the time I got down there in the 70s, they had just put number 5 on. Springfield was really growing.
I started in June of 1978. They had an explosion on number 4 unit in February of 1977. And when I got here, there was a plywood wall where the boiler is, and there was no boiler. It was all gone. They were just starting to rebuild it. One of the guys that was on the boiler the day that it blew up, I worked with for a long time.
Were you there when they had the explosion?
You mean when they blew number 4 up?
Yeah.
I was on the front of it. I was the welder at that time, and I was getting ready to go inside. That was probably one of the days that my life changed. And fortunately, no one was killed, but I did reassess what life was about. I'm thankful to God that I wasn't in there and nobody else was out there on the side of it. If they'd been out on the side of it, they'd been blown plumb off of it.
I was hired on in July 22nd, 1980. When I hired on, they had 5 units on. They had to take 1 unit off over a weekend and then went inside and bucketed fly ash out of the hoppers, which made me think I'd made a mistake. But I worked through it.
Most of our work in the boiler was done in the wintertime.
It's miserably cold inside one of those when it's a lot of metal and there's no heat. You can't stay warm inside of them.
We'd be in there replacing tubes or checking thickness on tubes and such like. Had to think about what you're doing, otherwise you could get in some real dangerous situations. And I forgot one time to mash the end of my finger off. We was moving a motor and it just...
This was a hard place to work because it wasn't always pleasant. It was either hot and nasty or cold and nasty, and it was dangerous. So, you had to depend on other people to keep you from getting hurt, and you had to keep them from getting hurt as well. It was challenging.
You might be up there in that penthouse and it'd be 130 degrees and you're changing the sight glass so that they can tell the water level in the boiler, and you work for a few minutes and go outside and catch a breath of air and get so that you quit shaking and go back in there and work a little bit more.
We were probably in lots of dangerous situations and probably more so before you learned more about the plant, and they would have probably been even more stressful had I realized how dangerous some of the situations were. It was wonderful that there were so many people that knew what they were doing. They would take care of you and they knew what to do. So as long as you followed their lead and listened. It went really well.
This is the best place to work. People made the difference. There were times that were difficult. The people around you made it good. And it was that way all the way up to the time that I retired.
There was a lot of good people here, and the people made the work bearable and enjoyable.
Just as soon as they dropped them units off in the fall, we'd start maintenance on that unit. We'd move to the next unit, and the object was by April or May of the next year to have all 5 of them gone through the boilers, whatever needed to be done on the turbines, any new installation, and be ready for that next summer. And the next summer was a time of just keep them on the line. You better hope that what you done that winter was able to carry it through, and there was times when that didn't happen, and then it was around the clock getting that thing back up and back on the line.
If we look at what has developed from an industrial standpoint, all of that foundation was laid by what James River Power Station gave us. If we were not able to do that, I don't think we would have nearly the diversity and certainly not the load that we have from various types of industries.
I think all of the guys down there knew the city was counting on us to make the power, so that was a general thinking, you know, whenever we'd get tired and would like to have gone home, we know we've got to stay here until we make it run.
Most of us lived in town. We knew what that meant for, you know, if you didn't have power, what that would look like for us. We just wanted to be dependable, and I think pretty much we were.
I did have pride working here. And sometimes you'd be in town or at church or something like that, and they turn on the lights, and you know you had a part in doing that. It made you feel good when you were able to provide like that. And people turn the lights on and don't even think anything about it or what the process is and how hard it is to get it there.
And if you look at the lifespan of the James River Power Station, it's almost unheard of in terms of power stations. Since 1957, that's 63 years ago. That's phenomenal.
It did last longer, and the reason it lasted longer because there were so many people down here that cared about it. And I used to look at it and tell the people that worked with me and some of the guys on my crew, you know, if we don't take good care of this place, we can't take care of our families. So, you know, keep that in mind.
Pretty much after the late 90s or so, early 2000s, it seemed like everything just started to work together. It was great. This is the greatest place in the world to work. Something would happen. We didn't have parts to fix it. We'd all get together, figure out what we needed, and they would build whatever it is. And if it's going to be like a 2-month lead time or whatever, and it was August, they'd go build something and they'd get it going.
One of the things I've been most proud of has been our emphasis now on renewable sources. Years ago, we would have never thought it was possible to be as high as we now are. We're continuing to expand that. What James River did throughout the years was make it possible for us to be independently solid on our power, but also to be able to say, let's look at all the options that we have there. So I congratulate the utility on a great run of 63 years, making the correct decision. James River is an icon in our community, and we're very proud of it.
I've always kind of liked the historical stuff around here, and I found some of the old shift supervisor logs. One of the interesting things that I found, and it's always stuck in my head, is their log for one night was they defrosted the refrigerator, ran the Nuvitrol, which was an old control for fly ash system, and picked up 5 megs. That was what they put down for their night shift, which is nothing anymore. And then it went from that to 5 units maxed out all the time when it was in the early 2000s until Southwest 2 came on, and that's pretty much what dropped them all the way back to nothing. That's when we started moving about everybody from here over to Southwest.
Are you sad to see that it's come to this time in its life?
Actually, I am, and I have resisted coming down here, even though there's people that I'd like to see, just because we worked so hard for so long to make this thing be able to run 100%, 24 hours a day, that it's sad to see it go the other direction. But you know, everything has its time.
Your hands were about on everything, and on the equipment, working on it, replacing it, modifying it. It's just hard to put into words how you feel when you see stuff like that and it's been here that long. It's sad for me because, you know, we worked hard to get this reliable, and by the time that we shut down, it was probably, at least from the time that I was there, a period where it was the most reliable that it had been. And we worked hard to get it that way, and it is sad to see it shut down.
It hurts. I haven't been down there in quite a while. It's a place I wish everybody in Springfield could get to see, you know, what all is involved in making power. You know, the cooling water, the fires in the boiler, the turbine, all the pumps, air compressors, changing the chemistry on the water so that you don't lime up the boilers. It's a complex process that happens.
I have spent more hours in this station than any house I've ever lived in, so I'm pretty comfortable walking through the dark. I'm past the depression part of this plant being shut down because it's going to happen. I have enjoyed working here. There's a few times that I've walked through here, I'll have a flashback of something that we did. I mean, there were times that we would be working to exhaustion, but it seemed like everybody worked really well together, but there was a lot of people that put a lot into it.
I'm very thankful for the opportunity to have worked there and the experiences we've had and the comradeship that we had amongst the guys. Pretty tight-knit group and depended on each other, and proud to have been a part of that.
It's been a wonderful place. I worked with lots of really good people, and the finest people that I have ever known all were right here. And it was nice to be a part of that team.